Acadia After Dark is a horror podcast, and as such, may not be appropriate for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised. Good evening, hikers. Welcome back to the Acadia After Dark podcast. I am your host, the Reverend Redbeard, and I'm very happy to have you join me on this most special of occasions. You see, it was exactly a year ago today that we began this journey to learn about the things that lurk in the dark spots between the pines, and so far it has been an incredible adventure. I very much look forward to what the next year holds, but before we get on to that, I want to take a moment to remember some of the favorite moments of the first year of the Acadia After Dark podcast. So I put together a little highlight reel of some of my favorite moments, some of the most memorable guests so far on the show. I will be back at the end of the broadcast to talk a little bit about what we have in store for year two. But until then, I hope you enjoy the show. I'll talk to you soon.
I was living in Fort Kent, Maine at the time. That's where I'm from originally. I was born there. I moved from there very young, so it feels like I grew up in Bar Harbor. That's where we ended up. But I was born in Fort Kent.
Nice.
And my mom had put me to bed. I was like 5 years old, and I don't know what time it was, but she put me to bed. I fell asleep, and in the middle of the night, something woke me up, like a loud noise of some sort. So my eyes popped open, and I was trying to figure out what it was. And then I started hearing these light taps on my window, and I was like, "Oh, is that rain?" So I looked at the window, and I saw the sky light up, and then I heard a thing of, a boom of thunder. I was like, "Oh, a thunder and lightning storm. Thunder must have woken me up." So I knelt up on my bed, to look out my window. And we lived right on the St. John River at that point. Like, you could throw a rock and hit Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And so I looked down, and the St. John River is just like roaring, crazy. And while I'm watching this, I'm seeing these lightning streaks in the sky. And just after a moment or so, there was a very disturbing thunderbolt. And like, if I were to ask you to draw it, you would draw this jagged yellow line. And it was stuck in the sky, like it was stuck in a cloud. It was really weird.
Oh.
And I knew at that age that you saw lightning just in a blink of an eye.
Yep.
But this stuck around, and there was kind of like a halo around it, and there was electricity coming off of it, and there was booms. And I don't really know what happened next other than falling back asleep. I woke up the next morning and went to the bathroom, I was done in the bathroom, and I was walking from the bathroom to my bedroom, and you can see out the window, and it was still there. So I ran downstairs to get my dad because I wanted to show him.
Wow.
I bring him upstairs, And, the whole time we're walking upstairs, and once we get to my room, I'm telling him about the thunder and lightning storm and how it woke me up, and there was this crazy lightning bolt and blah, blah, blah. And we get to the window and it's gone.
Mm.
So I must have been really insistent because he kind of had to like kneel down, get on my level, put his hands on my shoulders, and was like, buddy, like it didn't even rain last night. I don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
But again, I'm 5 years old, so the next shiny thing caught my attention and I forgot all about it.
Right.
A couple weeks later, I'm getting woken up again in the middle of the night, and it's my father this time, and he brings me downstairs, and I can see my mother is shoving my sister into her winter clothes, and then she does the same thing to me, and then my dad scoops me up, and we all go outside. And again, this was like the middle of the night. Again, I'm 5 years old. I have no idea if it's like 9 p.m. or 3 a.m.
Yeah.
But when we all go outside, and it's the middle of winter in Fort Kent, so it's a nightmare. It's super cold.
Right.
So my head is just buried in my dad's chest. And he keeps saying, buddy, you got to look up. You got to look up. So I take my head out of his chest and I look up, and I see, these amazing colors. There's like blues and reds and maybe some greens, and it was the Northern Lights. And it's the only time I've ever seen them. We had all these Northern Light sightings last year.
Yeah.
And it was always so cloudy where I am that I could never see them. It was so frustrating. But yeah, so I think those two really strange things happening at such a young age created some sort of core memory. And it told me that crazy, weird stuff happens in the sky, and you should probably pay attention.
I wanted to ask you because I see your shirt, P22. I've heard a lot about P22. Maybe you could tell my audience a little bit because I think they'd enjoy hearing a little bit.
All right. P22 at a year and a half old crossed two major highways, the 495, and I can't remember the other one, in California. He made it safely across both, which is very unusual, and ended up in Griffith Park, which is in LA. And it is a park that has an 8-mile radius, has thousands of people that show up every day to hike, bike, picnic. They put on plays at night there. They do all kinds of stuff. Well, when they found him in there, they collared him and they put him back, which is very unusual that they would do that. But he had made a home there, so they put him back. He lived there for 10 years and he passed away in 2022. I have my tattoo, my P22 tattoo. I don't know if you can see it. But,
yeah, it's a beautiful piece of art.
Yeah, the gentleman did a fabulous job. But he ended up getting hit by a car, and it ended up hurting organs. He had a cracked skull. He ended up going after pets in the neighborhood, and they actually found him in some woman's backyard. I do know that because I actually talked to a woman at the Cryptozoology Museum who was from LA, and we were having this awesome talk on P22. She lived in the same area, never saw him once the entire time that he lived there. But the warden service came door to door because he was collared and told people to stay in their homes. They went to the house that he was actually in the backyard. The woman was on the phone and they're knocking on the door. And she's like, excuse me, I'm on the phone. And they're like, excuse me, you have a mountain lion in your backyard.
Oh, wow.
But in the 10 years that he was there, he never hurt anybody. There was pictures of him on people's ring cams. There's a famous photo of him that a National Geographic photographer took of him just walking along a ridge below the Hollywood sign. He ate deer, raccoons, everything. And there was one gentleman who lived close by in some condominiums, but because the area is so small, he could time when P22 would be coming through. So he always knew when he had photos of him and stuff.
Wow.
And it was just one of the sweetest stories because there is a major fear when it comes to mountain lions. And there should be. I mean, they are wild animals, but we can coexist. And he kind of taught that area that you can coexist with these with big cats. There is a fear. It should be a natural fear, but it shouldn't be a fear that makes you think that they need to die, because that's what a lot of people see or hear the word mountain lion. It's like, oh my God. got to protect my family, got to protect. Usually if you see them, they're passing through, you know, you will have some issues. I mean, there are issues with, you know, juveniles getting kicked out by mama too soon. They didn't learn how to hunt properly, or you get them where they're old, like P22 got old and he went after the easiest meals, which were cats and chihuahuas.
In the parlance of our times, you bet your happy ass I have.
Yes.
Okay, so you want me to regale you with a tale of the uncanny?
Absolutely. Give me one of your best.
Okay, so I was 12 years old and I was living on the highway between Dexter and Dover Foxcroft. And I had stayed home sick. As one does back then. And 10 o'clock rolls around and I'm like, I'm feeling okay. Home by myself. I'm a latchkey kid, just like, everybody from our generation.
Sure.
And I'm watching The Price is Right, drinking my ginger ale.
Mm-hmm. Normal day off.
Exactly right. And so I decide that I want to go on an adventure. Nobody's around to stop me. So I pack, a couple peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, this kukri knife that I had that I thought was just the coolest thing in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I strap it to my belt and I go on an adventure into the woods, like an idiot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of that back in the day, I remember.
and just the weirdest thing was I had this orange like calico cat, and he just like came with me, kind of like kept pace with me like a dog would. And it was just, even at the time, I thought that it was just this, phenomenally strange behavior from a cat, because they don't do that.
Yeah, no.
So I'm like making my way into the woods, and it had probably been something like an hour. And when you're a kid, you're fascinated by everything. I was following like old farm walls, like you'll find them out in the woods of Maine, where the old property boundaries of old farms that have been completely grown over. They're just these crumbled stone walls, and I was jumping over streams and stuff. And eventually it's something like 12:30, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I came to this clearing, and it was the strangest thing, because like the trees just stopped, right? Almost like it was like a kept ground. And in the center of this clearing, there was like a stand of birch trees, but they were dead, like they had no foliage, but it was just dark inside.
Mm.
Like the sunlight should have penetrated, but it was just this weird shade. And I could feel something like repelling me. Dude, like I get chills to this day. I'm going to be 40 this year. And the cat would not enter this clearing. Like he was like hissing and spitting. And I was like, I'm not going to be scared. I'm a tough 12-year-old boy. I'm going to face down evil.
Yeah, right.
Wind up on a milk carton somewhere.
Yep, usually.
But like as I took a few steps in, and I felt like a presence, right? Just looking back at me from this stand of trees. And anyone who's not familiar with Maine, we have some old magic up here, y'all. We like it is. Stephen King writes about this place for a reason.
Yeah,
like it feels otherworldly here. Like the barriers are thin, and so eventually, my will breaks, and I'm like, you know what, I'm out. And so I kind of turn and hightail it back. And at this point, I'm convinced that I've just come face to face with like a primordial spirit of some kind. And so the cat follows me back. And that night, I have a dream where I'm like looking out. We had this window that kind of faced like our yard and stuff, and we had a vegetable garden. And I'm looking out, and I see like plants and dirt and like vines and stuff coalesce and stand up in like a bipedal figure, and it comes up to the window on the opposite side of the glass from me, and it speaks to me in kind of like a telepathic communication, and it just says, "I am the prince of dirt." And then I wake up, and next day the cat's gone. And I'm pretty upset about the cat disappearing. But then like 3 days, I think it was like 3 days that pass, and the cat is on our doorstep, desiccated, like mummified.
Wow.
And to this day, I think that cat like sacrificed itself to protect me or us from this spirit. And that's actually a story that's going to be in From the Pines.
I could tell you one of my most terrifying boards.
Let's have it.
It's called the Cat Killer. I bought this board on eBay back in 2023, and I bought it at auction. The guy said it was haunted, and I'm like, all right. But he didn't list why it was haunted. He just wrote it's haunted. And then after I bought it, he sends me a long message, and I'll actually read the message. Give me 2 seconds just to pull it up.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely worth it.
Oh,
You already got me riveted on this story.
this board is bound to a box. It is to never be taken out of the box. Well, case, box, same thing. Because we don't want it out in the public anymore.
Mm.
So we want it out in the public,
Well-
but safely.
We just don't want it to kill any more cats.
Yeah, this one's in containment.
He goes, sorry, I just got back into town today and I sent it off, so I wish you the best of luck with it. I also have to say I will not take it back. I'm never wanting this thing back in my life, but I hope you have fun with it. But just to let you know, I'm not joking around. That thing is cursed, and I hope you don't have cats because it doesn't like cats at all. Also, keep it inside. If not, it'll get angry and start opening things on you, hiding stuff from you. I wish you the best of luck with it, and may you have the best of time with it.
Oh, wow.
So I was going to New Jersey Pair Unity. So I had it shipped to my grandmother's house where my cat lived. The day it arrived, my grandmother contacted my wife to tell her when Jeff's in a good space, let him know that his cat passed away.
Wow.
And
It took me a while.
it took Ashley a while to figure out what's going on. And and then she goes, did you get a box in the mail? And she goes, yeah. And she said, can you open it and send me a picture of what it is? And so she did. And she told her to bring that outside and put it in their trunk of her car and do not take it out till we get home. And because the day it arrived, my cat died in its sleep that night.
Wow.
Coincidence? Was it old age? Could have been a mixture of the two. My cat was 19, 20 years old. But the thing is, he was perfectly fine till the day that board showed up. He walked in, laid down, never woke up.
That
Ooh, the hold egg. I did a little bit of research. Okay, as growing up, the hold egg, I thought it was just like mainly like a country get together, big old country fair, like a whole bunch of concerts happen, the big names come around, and it's like a big old festival, like a 3-day festival.
Yeah,
and
because
stuff
you have
like
a
that.
Hodag festival out there.
Yeah, exactly. So, I was growing up, I didn't realize the hold egg was a cryptid.
Mhm.
And so I've done a little bit of research. The hold egg went back from the late 1800s, if I'm not mistaken, between 1850 to 1890. What happened was loggers were in the woods doing some like cutting down trees because up in north in Rhinelander, that's where the origins came from, in Rhinelander, Wisconsin, which is up north. A whole bunch of loggers came around and they seen this lizard-like creature with long horns and red eyes and sharp, long teeth.
Yeah.
And they didn't know what the fuck it was. And so they got together, these loggers got together and told the story of this creature that was like bigger than a dog, but smaller than a bear. And we don't have any lizard-like type creatures in Wisconsin. So,
yeah.
But the story says the holding was said to be born from the ashes of cremation oxen, as an incarnation of the accumulation of abuse of the animals has suffered at the hands of their masters. The history of the holdog is strongly tied to Rhinelander, Wisconsin, where it was claimed to have been discovered. Which, yeah, because the main thing is was in Rhinelander, the holdeg and stuff was in there. So apparently,
so I know they had like an actual like picture back in the day of the hodag supposedly that they had caught.
Yeah, as a hodag captured, but the guy's name was by Eugene Shepard in 1893. And you can tell if you look at this picture, it's fake as hell.
It's pretty sus, yeah. Even for the times, I think anybody that looked at that on a fucking newspaper should have probably had a second look at that.
And there's another picture of the hodag too, and it looks kind of suspicious, man. But of course, back then they're like everybody's like, oh, you know, like, oh, this weird ass looking creature, holy shit.
Yeah.
But I'm going to read you guys origins of the holdeg.
Yes.
In 1893, newspapers reported the discovery of a holdeg in Rhinelander, Wisconsin. The articles claimed the holdeg had the head of a frog, the grin face of a giant elephant, thick, short legs set off by huge claws, the back of a dinosaur, and a long tail with a spear at the end. The reports were instigated by well-known Wisconsin land surveyor Timber Cruiser and prankster Eugene Shepard, who rounded up a group of local people to capture the animal. The group reported that they needed to use dynamite to kill the beast. A photograph of the remains of the charred beast was released to the media. It was, quote-unquote, the fiercest, strongest, most frightening monster has ever set to razor-sharp claws on Earth. It became extinct after its main food source. All white bulldogs became source in the area. So that right there, Eugene was a prankster. But the locals were like, after a while, they were like, okay, dude, it's all fake. But as Wisconsinites, they said, you know what? We don't have anything to celebrate on. So they just made the holdeg, and they made it into like a big old
it's a cultural event now.
Yes.
It's become a part of Wisconsin lore and culture, whether it's real or not.
Exactly.
And sometimes that's a really cool story in and of itself, you know, the fact that it can be something that wasn't even an actual thing, but then your culture or your like town or your state or whatever still does a thing. We have something similar here where we have this buck monument in Bucksport near me. It's probably 45-minute drive from me. And it's a thing that's been fully explained. We already know the reasons and the legends and the lore behind it and everything like that, but we still have an annual festival.
Point being that I utilize this platform as well as the other tour guides. We give them permission to challenge the notion, the pop culture notion of some of these ideas. one of the biggest notions, and I'm going to say the word. I know some people don't like the word, but I have so many people come up and say, "So, where's the Wendigo?" Okay, well, number one, it's a Ojibwe. You're not going to find it here because that's an Ojibwe thing, but we have things that want to peel your face off and eat your skin. So,
Right.
you know, we have different kinds of things, but that's because some of these creatures and some of these spirits have been wildly misunderstood and misconstrued due to pop culture, due to video games is a huge influence on the misunderstanding of creatures.
Absolutely.
Movies. I believe one was called Antlers. After people see that, they come running to the woods. And dare I say, and I will probably get hate for this, but just know I don't read the comments. So,
Nope.
Stephen King in Pet Cemetery actually combines, and I talk about this on the Monsters by Moonlight tour, he combined a Micmac burial ground with a Wendigo. So as authors tend to do, he cherry picked from one culture and added it to a cherry picked item from another culture to develop this story. But what people who don't do their research before they come here believe is that because Stephen King wrote it, it has to be here and it has to be that way. So then we talk about how pop culture influences belief in these stories and how the original stories can influence a better understanding of pop culture.
Yeah, so a while back, I went to Savannah, Georgia, and I was doing the nighttime tour of the Sorrel Weed House, which is thought to be like quite a haunted place. And the tour group was taking their time going down the stairs, and we were supposed to meet in this one room in the basement. So I was standing by the door, and I felt something, like it felt almost like someone had hooked their finger in my pocket and pulled me backwards. And they pulled me hard enough that I took a step back, and I assumed it was my husband. So I turned around and looked at him, but he was like across the room. So unless he was really hustling, there's no way it was him. And there was no one else standing near me. There was nothing, like I checked, there was nothing I could have hooked my pants on, but there was a desk about 1 to 2 feet to my left. And the tour guide saw me kind of jolt and asked what had happened. And I told her, and she said, "Oh, that makes sense based on where you're standing." I was like, "What are you talking about?" And apparently the daughter of the former owner passed away in her childhood, but she used to hide under her father's desk and grab his pant leg when he was there and she wanted attention.
Oh, wow.
So
Wow, what a connection to have that. Like, yeah. If it had just been like, oh, like, you know, it touched your like hand or something, that'd be something. But to have it be so specific, that's incredible. Wow. That's really cool. And this is in Georgia, you said?
Yeah.
Savannah, it was one of the most haunted in the US from what I understand. So
yeah.
that's a cool one. Hotspot.
Okay, so my one experience now, I'll tell you, and this again, I'm gonna mess with my followers here. I am not I am a born skeptic. I am a science person. I read mycology published scientific papers for fun. So I am a scientific evidence person. But
yeah,
I will say when I was a kid, I had my stepfather, who was not a nice human being, used to make me keep my door cracked about 6 inches every night. And the reason he had me do it was so that he could see if I was sleeping when I was supposed to be. And rather than looking in the door and saying, "Hey, go to bed," when he saw me reading a comic book with a flashlight, he would just stand there in the doorway and just stare at me. Yeah, it's a dark, the outside room was dark. My room was dark. So he's just the silhouette standing in the doorway, waiting for me to see him so that I would freak out and go to bed. Again, not a nice person. But that became a thing. And then like it started to get to the point that I would look up at that doorway, and again, it's dark on the other side. It's dark in my room, and I would see somebody standing there, but it wasn't him. It was the silhouette of a person wearing a wide-brimmed hat, and I could count on one hand the number of times I had seen my stepfather in a hat, so it was not him. And I would see this man standing there, and it would just scare the hell out of me every time. And this was like a regular thing. I mean, it was like once a month I would see this person standing there in a wide.
And how old were you? You were a kid, right?
Yeah, it started when I was like 5.
Oh, damn.
And I would just see him standing there, and I would just freeze and be horrified. And it got to the point I started sleeping under my bed on the floor. Just because I would keep seeing this person standing there staring at me through a doorway, and it's just this black silhouette, no eyes, no discernible features except the shape of a man in a wide-brimmed hat. And again, I was 5. I'm in my late 40s now, so this was in the early 80s, and I didn't think much of it aside from he scared the hell out of me, and it stopped probably when I was a teenager. But I gained an intense fear of the dark because of this. Like intense. I had to sleep with the hallway light on until my mid-30s. And then in my mid-30s, I was searching around on the internet, and I started seeing these stories about somebody called the Hat Man. And there was like a actual like low budget horror film made about him, and I started seeing these stories about this silhouette of a man wearing a wide-brimmed hat that people would see at night staring at them. And I was like, holy shit, what the hell? This was my boogeyman. How are other people seeing this person? And following my account, I've mentioned the Hat Man several times because he scares the shit out of me.
Okay, so there was this band that I was in. We went under couple different names. Started out as Forget the Night, and then we later down the line changed our name to Secrecy Unspoken. We played out from here to like southern Maine. We played in Auburn a lot, even though we were based out of Newport.
The long haul.
Yeah. But there were 2 separate instances of like something beyond what I believed in at the time.
So as a baseline, not to cut you off, but as a baseline, do you believe in like ghosts, UFOs, supernatural and stuff, or are you more of a skeptic, just as a general baseline?
I didn't believe in ghosts and stuff prior to these experiences, but now I fully do. I believe that there's more to the world than we could possibly understand. And as far as aliens go, like, there are so many planets, so many galaxies. I feel like it's kind of small-minded to think that Earth should be the only planet capable of sustaining sentient life.
Sure. Yeah, that's kind of my logic on it too. I'm like, it's just a math game at a certain point. Like, there's just no reason we should be. So yeah, so it sounds like you got a pretty level head about this stuff. So tell me about this experience. What made you, what turned you around on this? Tell me what's going on.
Trying to think which one came first. They were both while recording. The first one was we were recording an EP in Thorndike, way out in Thorndike, at this guy's house, and the 2 guitarists, Brandon and Josh, were upstairs recording. I think Josh was playing bass at the time, and we had Brian Brian Moore on guitar, who was producing the album. And I was sitting in the living room hanging out with the guy who owned the house's dog. And the front door blows open. I go and I close the door and I sit back down with the dog, but then it blows open again and the wind chimes on the deck start playing this really creepy melody. Like, I could not make this up. It was like, I was legitimately like freaked out. I ended up running up the stairs to where they were recording and being like, what the fuck just happened? Because I didn't believe it.
Yeah.
My eyes were.
So it was like, was it like normal, like the chime noise, or was it like they were in a pattern, like aside from just the wind
It
blowing?
was like a straight up melody from like Silent Hill.
Oh, that's upsetting.
Yeah. And my eyes were immediately fixed to the church across the street.
Yeah. That definitely always weirds you out.
Yeah, I'm not sure of the legitimacy of it, but I ended up telling the owner of the house about that experience, and he told me that there was a pastor of that church who at one point hung himself in the steeple.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Damn. I mean, I just, as a general, like, throwing it out there, because, man, I've been studying some weird stuff across the state for the last few months. And one thing I can tell you is it's a surprising amount of times that I will hear a story like that. And I'll be like, yeah, but what are the odds? And then it actually is fucking true.
Well, setting aside the triumvirate of Stan and Jim and Lauren, who were kind of like the giants upon whose shoulders I stand.
Sure.
I mean, it's funny. I think the one I really want to mention, I do mention every time this question kind of comes up, is like Kendall Carver. He's completely outside of the world of paranormal. I think it was the most important episode we ever did. Kendall's daughter, the late Kendall Carver, he passed away about 5 years ago. He was the director of the International Cruise Victims, and his daughter vanished on a cruise. And it became his life's crusade to raise awareness of the dangers of cruise ships, and also to tell his daughter's story, and also be an advocate for other families who have experienced this. He testified before Congress. A great man. And I liked him a lot. I'm kind of getting choked up thinking about it, because I would love to still have him on the show, because he was just a tireless advocate for these folks and what they have gone through, because he went through it himself. And and I just thought that was so important. Like, I don't know if I would ever go on a cruise ship again. He sort of disabused myself and the listeners of sort of the notion that you see in the commercials, that these are like, oh, it's a fun-filled week-long party. And it's like, no, these ships are registered in third world countries, so the laws don't apply. The American laws don't apply. So if something happens to you, very often young women, if they get sexually assaulted by crew members or something, like, what they do is essentially they're like, we're going to drop you off at the next port of call, and you can file a police report with someone in the Dominican Republic against this, and it's like, it becomes a huge thing. They don't have the proper medical care on these ships. Someone had like a medical emergency. He was telling me, I remember, like, and the same thing happened. They're like, well, we're coming into Puerto Rico tomorrow. They wheeled this person off the ramp and like to an ambulance. And it was just like, they had they were kind of waiting around for help for a couple days. It was like really bad. And there's no police. There's nothing. There's no like a law enforcement on the cruise ship. It's sort of all run by the cruise company and everything. And they're sort of like, it's more like public relations. And if something happens, that someone from the company will talk to you, but their job is to like get you to sign something so you don't make any trouble for the cruise company. They're not there to investigate what happened and everything. And there's no, he said something like some percentage, some insane percentage. I just watched like a Netflix documentary on this cruise ship.
Yeah.
The
poop cruise.
The poop cruise. Yeah. And it really rung a lot of bells from my conversations with Kendall, because it was like, let's say there's 10,000 people on the ship. Like a third of that is the crew, and they're not vetted. There's no like, it's not like when you go to volunteer at a school or teach or any of these jobs here where they do a Corey and they do a background. None of that. They just hire these people just off the streets from all over the world. And it's like, look, dude, if you're in some other country and you want to, get the hell out of town because you need to, you can go work on a cruise ship and just live the life at sea. So yeah, Kendall Carver was, I really, that one really kind of just really stuck with me, because it was like, wow, here's something, and I kind of got into it just in a titillated sort of way. Like, ooh, what are these creepy cruise ship mysteries? But like talking to him really drove home, like, these are real people who have had terrible traumatic experiences, and the cruise ship industry is incredibly corrupt. And it's, so it was like, wow, there's a lot more of this than stuff you see on like Discovery ID. This is like, these are real people who have had terrible experiences. Now, other guests, I'll just give you another couple of fun ones, is the one I always get mentioned a lot is Colin O'Reilly. He was sort of his topic was meat-eating horses. His whole thing was that he made the argument that horses eat meat. And it was kind of one of those, like, it sounds so ridiculous on the face of it. But as I said to him, like during the interview, I'm like, I have no investment in, I have no investment in like whether or not horses eat meat. So I'm all ears, dude. Like, make the case. And he kind of did it. And I was like, oh, all right. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, all right. I guess horses can eat meat, dude. I didn't really, think about it. And I'll just give one more recent one, because I'm a big appreciator of sort of the trailblazers and the pioneers and everything. And I recently had Larry Arnold on, who is like the preeminent spontaneous human combustion guest. And even when I set up to talk to him again, it wasn't until we kind of sat down to talk for the show that it kind of struck me that Larry is the guy. He's like the Lauren Coleman of spontaneous human combustion. Like, he's been doing this for 30 something. I think he said he's been doing like 50 years since like the 70s. And he's done, if you go back and you look at the shows like Sally, Jesse, Raphael, and that kind of like the 80s talk shows, if any show that's ever done spontaneous human combustion, Larry Arnold is the guest, because he's the only guy. And it's like, what a weirdly unsung hero in a sense. Like, when Larry Arnold's gone, I don't know, like, when Larry Arnold goes, spontaneous human combustion goes with it, because I don't know anyone else who is even researching this or championing it or advocating for it or anything. And he's been the guy for like 50 years. And it's like, man, that's like, I envy those folks. I really do. These are people, that's why I'm kind of one of those people that's like, look, if you're going to admire someone, like, you can admire sort of the alternative people and the quirky folks, but like, have an understanding and a reverence for the greatest, the great ones, really, I love Bob Dylan. I love Ric Flair for all his faults.
Yes.
I love people that became the fucking pinnacle, that were the very best. Cause it's like, well, that's who I want to kind of understand. And so it's like people like them, and people who really left an indelible mark on this field. I just kind of, legacy, like Linda Godfrey right there. It's like she put Dogman on the map. Like, she literally put Dogman on the map in Wisconsin and beyond. It's like, if not for Linda, that wouldn't even be, I don't think that would be a part of the paranormal cryptozoological zeitgeist. No. I don't think it would even be a thing.
If you're going to tell me Bigfoot just disappeared and reappeared and all that horse shit, then
oh my
carry
god,
on, dude.
Okay, so you know what I thought of for that, because actually I've heard that so many times and it bugs me too. So you know what I thought of with that? What if Bigfoot could climb and these fuckers just don't look up.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's to stop it from just climbing a tree? Bears can climb trees quite fast.
That's one of those things that I've kind of been my theory for years is the whole look up, man. Like there's a lot of shit that goes on up there, you know. I mean, and then you've got to look at it like, where would you go? You know, I mean, it's these things. They're disturbingly human.
Yeah, they're intelligent.
Very. It's again. It's I know. I don't know what we're dealing with, but I know there's something.
So on that, let me just ask you something, because I'm kind of curious where you lay on this. Do you feel it's something closer to human or closer to primate, like closer to like an ape?
Human.
Yeah, that's kind of my thought.
I'm definitely the idea it's a relic hominid. Like I just the whole I don't know. Yeah,
You're too human-like.
Yeah, for years I thought it was the whole ape thing. That's what was drilled into our head, you know, the apes among us and all that stuff.
Yep.
You know, and I don't know. I used to have, like, my grandfather, he was a big outdoorsman and shit, and I used to ask him all the time about Bigfoot, you know. And I think I used to piss him off sometimes, but it's what I did. I mean, I was a curious kid, and that's what made me what I am today. So, but he used to tell me that there were people out there that decided to exist in the woods, just said F it to all of it. And I used to think that was the dumbest excuse, like that wasn't explaining what was going on, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know, brain cramp. Sorry.
Yeah, it's all good, man. It's just there's so much stuff that, like, I remember one particular documentary, and you were even on it. So Small Town Monsters. Small Town Monsters, when they came up here, and they did one on the pine apes. And I was like, that was like one of the first times that I had heard some of that like story from that perspective, and even heard the name Pine Ape, which I since have loved. Like I just like the title Pine Ape. I don't think it really appropriate, but I like the name.
Oh, absolutely. Very catchy, you know. And when you get,
I don't think they're apes, though. I think that they're, like you say, I think they're far closer to human. I think that they're an offshoot of something pre whatever the fuck we are now.
Yeah, there's no question.
And it's one of those things where, like, Maine is one of those areas, I've talked about it before, where we have such a dense forest, sparse population in some areas, low human animal interactions. You look at your map up there, and how much of your map in the back there is like literally just wide open forests and waterways where ain't nobody gonna see or hear a damn thing.
Those big blank spots, that's not where, you know, the Sasquatch aren't. That's more than likely where they are.
Right.
You know?
We're catching the odd one that we happen to stumble across the once every 10 years.
It really is. It really is a luck thing, but sometimes I don't believe anybody that says they can take you right out to one. I could take you to a couple areas, but okay, it's like a moose, man. You ever tell someone you're going to take them and show them a moose?
Yeah.
You won't see a moose.
Yeah, dude, a cryptid, friggin' moose basically already is a cryptid. I've seen two in my entire life. I've been here for 35 years. Like,
they're real.
It's one of those things. The first time I saw one when I was walking through the woods, I actually thought I was seeing a fucking, like, you know, some mythical creature or something, because it was way bigger than I thought it was going to be.
It's very big.
I was very glad it was a female moose and there was no babies nearby. And I was just like, okay, I turned and I walked the other way. As soon as I clocked that, I was like, no, I'm not doing this. Because honestly, there's no outrunning a moose, not in the woods, man.
They can get nasty, and I don't blame them. They don't know. We're invading this is their home, man.
Yep, exactly. That's the way I pretty much handle most animals around here. Is we are in their home, and we need to respect that, whether it be ones that we know of or ones that we don't. Because, and that's pretty good rule to have in general when you're walking in these woods.
Sure.
So you
Especially if
got.
something can hurt you.
So you've been doing this a long time. Have you
Yeah.
had any? Have you had? You've been touched by ghosts. Have you ever had any? Any experiences with like Bigfoot, like sounds or something that you could definitely
Yes.
be like, that was a squatch that I heard, or
Well, no, I'm not. Again, that's not me. I'm not gonna say unless I see it come out of its mouth, man.
Yeah.
I did. I heard something one night that, I mean, I just about pissed my pants. Like it was. I'm not even kidding you. It was damn near terrifying. It was all of a sudden I understood the word primal. Like that's what I got out of that whole thing. And this happened at my home. Like I was on my front porch at the time. I smoked, and I'd go outside to smoke cigarettes, and was standing out there. It was like 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and it was again out in the woods. It's kind of where I like to live. And Jesus, like 50, 75 feet away was the wood line, and the loudest roar / scream. It was like a female screech all into one, like to the point where it vibrated me. I mean, my chest, I felt it. It was terrifying. And I was not alone. I had my girlfriend at the time was there with me. So, and she wasn't a big believer in all this shit. A lot of people in my life just put up with me doing this, and I don't force it on them, but this one came to me, and not even saying that's what it was, but considering the location and other stuff that I know now, it more than likely was exactly what it was.
Absolutely. This goes back, and it involves band stuff. We this would have been, I think, 2008, 2009. We were playing a show in Presque Isle up at the University of Maine, Presque Isle. Played a show up there. Now, where we live, it's about a 3.5 hour, 4 hour drive from Presque Isle back to where I live. I mean, it's a haul. Middle of the night, it's like, it's like 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. You're out in the middle of nowhere. It's nothing but potato fields and trees everywhere you go. So myself, a couple of the other band members were in one vehicle, and some other people in another band that we were traveling with were in another vehicle. And we're coming down through this long stretch of nothingness. And all of a sudden, the sky lit up completely blue, but it come from the ground up. It paused, hung in the air for probably 20, 30 seconds, and then it just kind of shot straight up and gone. Like so much so that it lit the road up and all the surrounding fields, everything, like a huge area. And I stopped in the middle of the highway because there was nobody else there, and I was driving. And I just turned to the Gary was with me, my drummer. I turned to him and I was like, "Did you just see what I just saw?" And he's like, "Yup." And about 10 seconds later, I get a phone call. Mind you, the reception up there is terrible for cell service, but
so
I
they were
actually.
trying.
So I got a phone call, and the vehicle that was probably 2 miles ahead of me called and was like, "Dude, did you guys just see that?" Like it described the exact same thing we see. And I was like, "Yep." and we just kind of drove on. Now, if you talk to Gary, he will reiterate the story pretty much right exactly as I told it to you.
But I know there was one day where me and my fiance, we were at this old antique shop near us. And it's in an old barn, and they just like stuffed with a bunch of things, and very kind of eccentric owner who just kind of puts everything he can in there. But there was, I remember specifically seeing this one painting, and it was of a woman, but it had like the very large eyes, similar to like, I don't know, I guess like, have you seen the movie Big Eyes, like that type of style?
Yeah.
And I remember looking at it, and I remember thinking like, oh, I'm gonna send a picture to Chelsea, and then I was like, no, this painting feels like bad. I just need to get away from it. But then, as we were going around, my fiance, she kept on, every time she walked by that painting, she would say, "Oh, excuse me," and then kind of like divert a little bit and go around. And it's a pretty crowded space, so it's hard to kind of get around. And I thought that she was just like accidentally running into the table and like saying "excuse me" just as like a habit. And then after like the third time this happened, I asked her, I'm like, "Who are you saying excuse me to?" And she's like, "The woman there." And every time she walked past that painting, she apparently saw a woman who was there, just like standing in front of it.
As far as like the fearsome critters, I would definitely say the dingmaw. The dingmaw appears in like all these stories, in newspapers and accounts of them, and you know, they're like, oh, we found this black bear with a broken jaw, and the only thing that could do it was a dingmaw, like just presented as true, like their descriptions are in there. And that, and like the side hill gouger, these were two of my grandfather's favorite stories. They're also all over the newspapers from the early 1900s all the way into the mid 1800s, and you know, as many newspapers as there are in the mid 1800s. But it's, you know, these are the things that were lively and would inspire like hundreds of letters being written to the letter and you know, to the editor of the newspaper. And I love those stories, this idea of like a big cat with stumpy little legs that likes to look out over the beautiful vistas and is generally kind of harmless, but if you get on their bad side, they can be pretty dangerous, and like any big animal. And I mean, I think that is a universal truth to them. And so, you know, the whoops and the screams and the wood knocks, that's these guys. And that's, you know, that's one of the most beautiful, forgotten, fearsome critters that's out there. I've only heard a couple people mention it, or mention that their stories, like who are alive today. You know, I talked to hundreds of people in the course of storytelling and doing lectures for this, and getting emails and contacts, and only 2 people have ever mentioned that they, you know, that they knew stories about the dingmaw by various different names. But so that one I absolutely love, and I think that one, if anyone is characteristic of sort of days gone by in Maine, it's that one. And of course the side hill gouger, almost as well known as the fur-bearing trout, though like there's less evidence because you can't hang them on the wall. But they're creatures with, you know, 2 uneven legs, so that they can keep, you know, their short legs on the uphill side and their long legs on the downhill side. And, you know, they'll give you a chase. They're good eating if you can catch them. You know, you just have to sneak up in front of them and scare them, and they sort of try and turn around, and their uphill legs get up, you know, their long legs get on the uphill side, and they just tumble right down. And, you know, bending gun barrels so your bullet will go around the mountain, because they walk around the mountain instead of, you know, up and down like we might. And, you know, so it's kind of like one of those great stories that can be a critter that can chase you, or a critter that you can chase. And I think that's the epitome of it. And people, so many people have those stories. And I think one of my favorite stories that somebody told me was that his father was always called Side Hill Gouger by his grandfather. This guy was like, you know, he's like, I had no idea my whole life why my grandfather called my father a side hill gouger, but it was because he had injured his legs and he had a limp. And so he had a leg that was a little bit shorter. And I was like, wow, that's one of those brutal like jokes that only families and good friends get away with.
Yeah,
there.
exactly.
So one of my most fun stories, most beautiful stories, I should say, it happened in my home. My old apartment is a building from 1860, and it's got a lot of history. And underneath it, there are coal roads. All underneath Bangor, there are coal roads that are reputed to be quite haunted. That's a whole nother thing. I don't think that this had anything to do with the coal roads, but I've had interesting experiences in this house. The first time I ever spent the night in my old apartment, I had a dream that there were 24 people lined up to use the bathroom. There's like this fancy bathroom in this apartment and this big room before the bathroom. And I walked out there and I said, "What are you guys doing?" And they're like, "We're here to use the bathroom." And they had these fancy like 1930s, 1940s clothes on. And I said, "I'm sorry, this is my house now. You guys are going to have to go elsewhere." And they all just kind of shrugged their shoulders and walked in different directions and dissolved into the walls. And that was the first dream.
Wow.
Yeah, it was wild. And I always felt a presence there, but never felt harmful or dangerous or anything. There's a guy there who's grumpy, but that's not harmful or dangerous, just grumpy. But anyway, one night I was in that bathroom and I was cleaning that bathroom, and I just had this urge to turn around and look in the room behind me. And when I looked in the room, I saw these 4 huge beings. Like this room probably had 12-foot ceilings, and the beings there were 4 of them, and they were in a circle, and I could see from like the shoulders down, like the heads were lost to the ceiling. And it was silent, but they were like thrashing. They were dancing. It wasn't threatening. It was beautiful, but they were dancing, and their arms were like going above their head, like, and their knees were coming up to their pectorals, and they looked like they'd be stomping. It looked like it should be really, really loud, but it was super quiet, and it smelled like negative ions, like a waterfall or after a thunderstorm.
Yes.
And it was just gorgeous. And so, like the old school TVs that have the glass fronts, the glass screen.
Yes.
And you know how if you got water on those TVs, the pixels would like bulge and turn bright, and it'd be those 3 colors.
Yeah.
It looked like that, except for the pixels were like triangular instead of square, and they were just made out of these colorful pixels. And in between the pixels, it looked like TV static, like black and like white lines that were staticky. And they were just, like I said, dancing, and I felt like a voyeur. To me, they looked like they were from a different dimension, and I just felt like I was spying on them, and they were having a great time. And like I said, it was completely silent, and I just stood there and just stared. I just couldn't believe my eyes. And then I grabbed my phone really quickly, and I wiped it off my dress to make sure the screen was clean, and I recorded it. On the recording, you can see like road, like the wiggly air, like over a road, a hot road in the room.
Yeah.
And in the corner of the room, you can kind of see like this like light kind of like I call it like a light aperture, like waxing and waning, it just up in the corner. And I wish I thought to talk to them, but I didn't. I was just so overwhelmed by their beauty. And I've asked people, like, what are these things? And nobody really seems to know. But to me, I really do feel like they're interdimensional travelers, or I just saw a different dimension. I don't believe in accidents. I think there's only synchronicities. So even though I felt like a voyeur, I felt like I was supposed to see it.
Right.
And it was just gorgeous.
House hunting, because when we first moved here, we just rented a house for a little bit, and then we got to that point where like, okay, we're ready to buy a place. So we were house hunting in Bangor and the surrounding areas, and you learn real quick. It's like not a lot of the houses around here are very old, and some are kind of quirky. So just in our house hunting adventures and going into different basements, and it's like, why does this basement just have this creepy empty room that's like partially walled off, and you just have the feeling like something really bad at some point, something bad must have happened in here, or there'll just be a random toilet in the basement that's still fully functioning, and you're wondering like, why is this here? So just like for me, it's just like finding a lot of the really weird, quirky just places, just from trying to find a house that in a town that's, over 150 some odd years old, and some houses are still that way, and they haven't been changed all that much. So I did also, I guess for me, the other thing is I did get to spend some time over at Fort Knox, because
that's fun.
The first summer I was here, I was in a production of As You Like It for $10 Theater, and they do a week or so of shows at Fort Knox every summer. So just getting to spend a week there, especially in the evening when it starts to get dark, and you just kind of get to hang out amongst those halls of stone and the history that it has there. I never really felt creeped out or anything. I was really more in awe of the place.
Yeah.
I know they have their own ghost tours that they do now and again. So really just that. So for me, no paranormal stuff, but just a lot of just getting to see these old places that have so much history, and and of course, going on the Mount Hope Ghost Tour was fun too. So, but I don't know, I'll let Kaddie talk, because she's the one that's actually traveled all over the state more than I have. So,
Look here, you're keeping me up real big here.
Well, you did the story of the Criterion, though.
Well, yeah. I mean, like that's pretty on point. I mean, getting to do the ghost story stuff. So getting, we were chatting about earlier, getting to do the stuff at the Criterion and Bar Harbor, and then doing the Nellie Butler stuff and Sullivan. When I did that a couple years ago around Halloween, that was pretty cool. And I mean, I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, because I have been around more, and I've gotten to spend time in a lot of interesting places. Whether it is an older building or even a newer building or something. It's been kind of neat. Even when I was in Ellsworth one time, they've got that old used to be the police station. It's like the old sheriff's office or whatever it is, that old house and stuff, and having the jail downstairs and stuff like that. So so I've been in a lot of really neat places, but I think one of the things that really was consistent for me and really struck me is the skyscapes up here. I'm a big outdoors person, of just like one of my favorite things is I grew up in a small town in North Carolina. One of my favorite things to do was just hang out outside and just look at the sky. And I would take pictures of the moon and, see all the cloud formations and such. And, one of the things I've been really struck by since moving to Maine is the cloud patterns, even during the day. And you'll see ones that just look like shredded feathers, in the sky. And then especially when I first worked for the station, I used to be a associate producer for the morning news. So I had to go into work at 2:30 in the morning. And we're right near, we live right near the airport. And so I actually used to drive on Odlin past the airport every morning, and just that clearing where a lot of the planes come in over 95. I would sometimes just pull over for a quick second on my way to work and snap a couple pictures, because even the sky at 2:15, 2:20 in the morning, you'd see some of the neatest cloud formations and just skyscapes. So I think that's been one of my favorite. It's like one of my favorite, but like also kind of the eeriest things that can really be like enchanting, but also terrifying at the same time.
It's about an amphibious entity that was discovered in Old Orchard Beach in like 1974.
Yeah.
And there has been tales of this thing being sighted since like the 1600s. And in the 1800s, somebody famous, I forget their name now, but a famous like captain saw it in Old Orchard Beach, and he called it the white monkey. And that's what it's kind of been dubbed ever since. But there's this story about this woman who is still alive and well and kicking in Old Orchard Beach, Maine. In Old Orchard Beach, Maine. Her name is Wendy C. Allen, and she's a bit of a quirky character around town. I'm not quite sure of her age, but she's, I think, might have a decade on me or so. And she was a little girl with a cousin, and they were playing out in the forest in Old Orchard Beach back in, I think it was 74, maybe 75. I don't have the information in front of me, but and they saw this, what they thought was a white monkey up in a tree. And they were like, they weren't scared or anything. They were like fascinated by it. And it spoke to them like telepathically. And it's like, hey, go home and get me some bananas, you know? And she's like, okay, I will. So she runs home with the cousin, and they burst in the door, and they're like, oh my God, there's this white monkey, and it's in the woods, and it's up in this tree, and it wants some bananas, blah, blah, blah. And the parents are like, oh my God, this is okay. Let's come show us.
Yeah.
And so, you know, she's got the bananas, and she's super happy. And when they get to the woods, it's not there anymore. So what ends up happening is a lifetime of encounters with Wendy and this white monkey, which she said it told her its name was Italy, and that he was, you know, 800 years old, and his UFO crashed here in Old Orchard Beach, you know, about 400 years ago. And so he's from the ocean, and he likes really cold water. And so he'll spend his time between the ocean and the swampy areas around Old Orchard Beach. And when he befriended her, he's, you know, this 5 or 6 foot tall, really weird, white looking creature. An amphibious creature is what he called himself. Kind of, you know, picture the creature from the Black Lagoon, but like translucent almost, you know, like white translucent.
Sure.
And it said that it had quite a hard life after crashing to Maine. There was a point where he said he was kidnapped by Nazis and just tortured for like 100 years. And,
wow,
you know, so he lived through a bunch of trauma. Now, during this whole time, it turns out Wendy lives and is being raised by very abusive people. And we're talking, you know, physical abuse. We're talking a lot of mental abuse. Her mother didn't want her in any way. So she felt very isolated herself, and she shut down a lot in front of people, and she would go out and hang out with Italy. So they form this bond, and they remain friends all throughout the years while she's growing up, and, you know, and becomes a young woman, and then you know, a woman in her 20s and 30s. And this creature is helping her kind of work through her trauma, and she's helping this creature work through its trauma. You know, first of all, it's been stuck on Earth for 400 years.
Right.
And,
bad enough.
Yeah, bad enough. And then all the torture that it went through, you know, from the Nazis. And so they have like this trauma bond that they're experiencing together. And he would help her. He was really very strong and had some special powers. You know, he could speak telepathically. He was very, very strong, and he could move really fast. And there's one report where this woman was giving Wendy a hard time, and Italy, when nobody was looking, picked up her car and turned it upside down and smashed it on the ground. And
wow.
Yeah, and, you know, did it right in the middle of town, and everybody woke up, and there's this car upside down in the middle of town, and they're like, how the hell did this happen? And you know, and Italy told Wendy that it was him, and she's like, no, you can't do stuff like that. I appreciate you like looking out for him, but you can't do stuff like that.
Sure.
So you know, she never stopped in this belief of Italy, and kept telling her family about him, like, you have to believe it. And so they shunned her because of this. They're like, you're a freak. Aliens aren't real. You're insane, you know. And she was homeless for a long time. And she wrote this book called For Fear of Little Men. And it's a tome. It might be 400, 500, 600 pages. It's huge. And I don't know if it still is, but it was available as a PDF to download. And in it, she talks basically about her whole life, and a huge part of it is her experiences with Italy. So that all happens, and she writes that book. And then I don't know what happened, but like 5 years ago, she completely changed and said, Italy is not an alien. I've never said he's an alien. He's actually a little Jewish man, And from the torture he endured in Nazi Germany, that's why he looks so strange and like he's white, and ashy and has deformities, is because of the torture. And you guys are crazy. He's never been an alien. And I've never said it. You'll never find anywhere I said, well, I have the whole book,
Yeah, as I say, you wrote a book about this.
Yeah.
Like,
and she has several blogs across several different types of Tumblr type sites, like Skidoo was one of them. Tumblr was another one. And then she has her own website. I don't know if it's wendycallen.com. I forget now, but it's all sourced in one of my books. So after this crazy, 40 years of talking about Italy, she's completely changed.
Just 180s the whole thing.
Yeah, 180s the whole thing. And it's so strange. So in my opinion, that's one of the strangest stories I ever came across. And when I first pitched it for my first book, like 11 years ago, the editor was like, whoa, this is too much,
Hey there, hikers. As promised, I'm back. Hope you enjoyed that little trip down memory lane. Some of those stories, on re-listening to them again, they chill me just as much as when they were told to me the first time. And I'm so glad that I got to meet all these people along the path of the last year, as this channel has grown, as the podcast has developed. But enough of the past. Let's look ahead to the future. So, we've had a few changes in the last few months at the channel. Over the summer, we changed the schedule a little bit. We switched up, brought in some new shows like Fearsome 5, Campfire Stories, while I was in the process of writing Acadia After Dark Season 2. Now, we talked quite a bit about that in the last few months, and I'm glad to say it's finally almost here. Acadia After Dark Season 2 will premiere October 30th. And with that, we will be going to that releasing every 2 weeks. And in the off weeks, we will continue to have park updates, because that is a fun little series that I think people are starting to get the vibe of, and I want to see where it goes. Now, we've also done a lot to improve the product by releasing merch. We've also updated the website, and I mean, hell, even the development of the website is still an ongoing thing, but we've added a lot. So going forward, we're also going to be expanding to Patreon content. And that's going to be basically a way of getting ad-free episodes as well as once a month additional content, which will be basically short stories that don't quite fit into the Acadia After Dark narrative. That won't be launching until the beginning of the year. So there's still some time, because I want to let Acadia After Dark stand by itself for a while. Anyways, there will definitely be more news to come. The podcast itself will remain on hiatus for the rest of the fall, but I'm looking forward to it coming back fresh in 2026. Again, I want to thank every single one of you that has joined us on this journey. It has been incredible. I have had a blast writing and producing the show. I really, really look forward to what 2026 brings, and I hope that you do too. So, as always, this is the Reverend Redbeard saying, keep those lanterns lit and stay safe out there.